Well, some of the guys you raced with, Corky Keener, Jay Springsteen, you mentioned Mert, obviously Mert Lawwell, and Gene Romero. But I would, from what from what I know and what I've heard, Gary Scott was probably your biggest rival on the dirt track side of things. Is that correct? Like, talk about your rivals a little bit. Like, who are those guys who you absolutely hated racing with, hated losing to? Maybe like that guy, your biggest rival.
Would have to be Scott because we were novices together, and he was from Southern California, and I was from Northern California, and he was the guy. Everybody, the Gary Scott's the guy to beat. Gary Scott's the guy to beat. And so when I grew up with Gary Scott at 18 years old, 19, he was obviously big enough to ride a Triumph because he got one. And so we, juniors together. So I was number one novice, number one junior, and I led the first year expert probably till mid-season. And I got a bump at Houston, of course, but Daytona was so-so. But the real thing was Gary Scott. Him and me he had enough talent to be there and race. And I would have to say him more than anybody else. Now, me and Jay had our little thing at the end. Corky, you mentioned Moorhead. We all had races, but I think Gary Scott would have to be the guy that I hated. I just hated to lose. And I would go out of my way to beat Gary Scott. Matter of fact, one race, Terre Haute, Indiana, and it was a half mile. And Terre Haute, Indiana is kind of a longer straightaways and tighter corners. And that's when I could flick it sideways, stop it, and turn it and go. And them kind of racetracks, the Yamaha would work. So I was setting Gary Scott up. I was passing him on the outside of turn 3. So I knew at the last lap he would move out. And I went underneath him. And I'm pushing him out to the marbles just a little bit to make sure he wasn't, because he had a Harley. So, and I heard an engine, and I was coming out of the corner, and I heard this engine. I was like, look back, and Mert Lawwell is seeing the whole thing, and he knows what's going to happen. And so we're coming out of turn 4, heading to the finish line. So I just reached over. I knew he was going to pass me. I just reached over and grabbed his knee and pulled myself ahead of him. And right at the 50 feet from the start finish line, I let him go. And he was laughing so hard in turn 1, he almost fell off the bike. He couldn't believe. He said, I wouldn't even dream of something like that. And I said, oh yeah, well, I knew you were going to pass me, but I did let him go.
That's incredible. So I have a segment I like to do, and Corey's probably rolling his eyes right now, but it kind of alludes to what you just said, though. But my segment's a little bit different because I'm kind of an asshole. I mean, maybe that's why I've always looked up to you, because you kind of have that demeanor that people were kind of intimidated, I guess, by you a little bit. But so when you show up to a track and a guy needs to borrow a sprocket, or hey man, I need something, anything as minuscule as a cup of water, and Kenny says, man, fuck that guy. Who is that guy to you? And it could be one of the road racers also. I know you had some rivals in Europe, but flat track wise, is there a guy that showed up and you're like, you wouldn't even give him a link for his chain if he needed it to make the main event?
I'd like to say Gary Scott, but I was never, I guess I was never fearful of someone beating me, no matter, what the situation was. So I probably wouldn't be upset about giving him some, because I knew I was going to beat him anyway.
Dude, that is.
So whether I did or not, I always thought I could.
Yeah.
But also in road racing, I mean, Randy Mamola came over as a young American, and I let him follow me in practice, and I'd let Eddie Lawson, all them guys follow me, and I never shake them off. The only guy that I wouldn't let follow me was Spencer,
Interesting.
And so, yeah.
Any particular reason?
Well, because he was on Michelin tires and a Honda, and that is not a good combination when you're on Dunlops and a Yamaha.
Okay,
And
fair enough.
I didn't need to give away anything there. I mean, we raced, side by side a lot, but yeah, it was just that way. I mean, I didn't need to help him. He was fast enough on his own.